Hey, I've got an abundance of cucumbers from my garden. I've got just enough to make a couple of pints of bread and butter pickles. Stay tuned. We'll get together and we'll make some. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. Brought you guys into the kitchen. Yep, Dude in the Kitchen series. I'm going to make bread and butter pickles for the first time ever, and the recipe I'm using comes right out of the USDA Home Canning Guide. I purchased this online. I'll go ahead and leave a link down below for you guys to purchase it. You also have the option of going to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's website and find the PDF form to download for free. Your option. This also is available for a little bit cheaper than hardback that I purchased in paperback form. So I'm going to be following, for the most part, the instructions. A couple of things I'm going to change, but it'll be safe to change. Let's get busy and get these pickles prepared. The recipe calls for about 6 pounds of pickles or cucumbers. I'm going to trim these down, and it instructs us to cut both ends off just a little bit. The bloom end especially. Get rid of the bloom end, and you guys will rid the enzymes that are in the blue end that cause ripening. I'm going to save all these in this container right here, and then I discovered I can make cucumber vinegar out of this stuff later. I'm going to give that a try. So let's trim these down into approximately 3/16 inch thickness. Pickle chips is what we're going for. Now, I do have a meat slicer, as you guys have seen in other shows, and I could make it consistently the same thickness throughout, but I'd rather just take my time, have a moment in the kitchen, and just have fun. So let's get back to work. Now, of course, I don't have to tell you guys, wash your vegetables when you bring them in and out of the garden. You guys are smart, you know to wash them. But those who are new that don't know any better, well, wash your vegetables. Now the next step is asking me to chop up 8 cups of onions. I don't have 8 cups of onions. This is all the onion I have left in my garden. Oh, I've got some red onions and white onions out in the greenhouse. Just a moment, I'll be right back. Now I've got a bucket up here. I'm saving all the skins because I ordered a cow and I talked to the butchers yesterday, and I want the bones because I want to make bone broth, and you put these vegetables, including all the scrap vegetables, in with that vegetable broth. And don't discard the onion skins because they're loaded with nutrients. I have these set in the greenhouse to set, which is a perfect environment on a screen to get them set and ready to use. So these are all the onions I have. Looks like if any more recipes, I'll have to go to the market and buy onions, or go to I can support my local farm stand and buy their onions. That's what I'll do. And now comes the task of peeling and skinning those onions. Hey, look at the amount of vinegar I get to make. Well, this is just a start. I'm going to put a lid on this and pop it in the freezer until I'm ready. Yeah, I got room in this freezer. I gotta go harvest turnips next, so I'll be throwing turnip pieces and turnip greens into my bucket for the bone broth. Now I don't have to chop the onions, I just need to turn them into onion rings, so I'll just slice them. That's all I need to do. But I gotta get these skins off. Now I haven't had bread and butter pickles in years. Oh, not since I was a kid. Yeah. So I'm gonna finish processing these onions, and I'll be back when all the onions are done. Okay, we're on the tail end part of doing the onions. I mean, look at the variety of color in there. I find that interesting. The purple, the yellow, the white. That's going to be an interesting jar of pickles, huh? And one last onion. Okay, we're done with the onions. Look how much onion skins I got just from this. I'm going to put a lid on this and refrigerate it. My bones won't be here for about 2 weeks, so I'll do bone broth in about 2 weeks. But I better put this in the refrigerator for now. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup of pickling salt. Yep. Just sprinkle it over there. Mix it in. Now, the recipe calls for putting ice on there, cubed ice or shaved ice. I don't have either. I know some people just refrigerate it. And what the salt's going to do is draw some moisture out, and then that moisture is going to sink to the bottom, but we're going to use all that moisture. So this is ready to go in the refrigerator. And I have room on a shelf in this fridge back here. Well, I can make room. We're gonna let that set for about 4 hours, and then we'll come back. We'll make the brine for it. We got to boil some stuff up, but I'll see you guys in 4 hours. But to you, it's still gonna be a video second, okay? We'll be right back. So while the pickles are sitting there in the salt in the refrigerator, I'm gonna go ahead and lead some newbies through canning 101, basic canning, because this is a water bath canning operation. The first thing I want to do is wash my jars in hot soapy water. Make sure they're rinsed. And you even want to do that with jars when you pull them right out of the box that come from the factory. You don't know what's in them. So the next thing we're going to do is wash the lids in the rings in hot soapy water. Rinse them and set them aside. And then the lids, right out of the box, always use new lids. And just the instructions are saying wash them in hot soapy water and then set them aside for use. It does not say to boil them to sanitize them, because this new seal that they put on today's lids, they don't recommend boiling, because that could actually ruin your seal gasket. So just wash them in hot soapy water and rinse, and set them aside until you're ready to use them. Since we got the jars out, I want to make sure I inspect all my jars. These are Kerr brand jars. They just have Kerr Mason jars. They just happen to be in my inventory, and these are smallmouth. These are suitable for the pickles I'll be canning. These are quart size. So I'm inspecting the jar to see if there's any cracks, and I'm also running my finger around the ridge of each jar to make sure there's no cracks or chips that would compromise the seal of your lids when you begin canning the process. Now over here on the stove, I have on low heat a pail full of water. This is my canner. These are available at most grocery stores. I got this at Walmart. It comes with a rack inside, because you do not want to put your jars down in the water. Ooh, that's hot already. Down inside the water, flat on the surface of the stove on the bottom of the pot, because then you'll break your jars because of the heat. You want them on a rack. And I'm gonna set the jars down in there one at a time, and then we're going to sterilize the jars a little bit in that hot water. Just make sure they're completely filled with water. And for water bath canning, you'll want about 2 inches of water over the surface, over the top of your jar lids. I'll go more into the canning process when I'm done here, and we start filling the jars and putting them in here for canning. Okay, I can fit 7 jars in there. I had prepared 8 jars. I doubt I'll get to do 8 jars total. So I got a pitcher of water. I'm just going to finish filling those jars up. And you got to sterilize them in the boiling water and the heat for about 10 minutes. And that will sanitize all the jars. And we just completely fill that up. Now when we get ready to can, we're going to have to draw some of that water out of there. So I'm going to cover it. And now we're going to prepare our brine. Now the brine calls for 4 cups of pickling canning vinegar. So there's 2 right there. And there's 4. And now I'm going to need to bring this up to a boil, so I'm going to turn the heat on high. And to this, we're going to add some more ingredients. Now, this is your choice only, but my choice is I harvested a bunch of honey from my bees. Instead of sugar, I'm using honey. It's asking for 4.5 cups of sugar. I'm using 2.5 cups of honey. This is equivalent to, well, 2 cups of honey is what I'm using. This is 1.5 cups, and this is 1/2 cup. So we're going to pour the honey inside the pot because honey tends to be sweeter than sugar. Now the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of mustard seed. I didn't have any mustard seed, so I quickly went online and ordered it from Amazon, and they delivered it the very next day. Really handy, because we live way out in the sticks, and it's so far to town to get what we needed, and our local market simply does not carry mustard seed. So that's 2 tablespoons. And now 1.5 tablespoons of celery seed. There's 1. And there's 1/2. Now it wants 1 whole tablespoon of ground turmeric. Right there. Come on, get the whole thing. Ooh, I'm gonna have to resupply my turmeric. I'm done. That's all I had left was a tablespoon. And that's it. That's the end of the ingredients. There is another ingredient they said is an option to put in there to maintain crispy pickles, and that is pickling lime. You'll need to wear a face covering when you're dealing with pickling lime, but I'm just fine without putting another additive in there like the lime, because I don't mind my pickles being just a little bit soft for the sake of not having to put in that extra chemical. So we're gonna stir this in. Make sure all the honey and the turmeric and all the other ingredients are diffused through there. And now it's time to get the pickles out of the refrigerator. Now they want you to drain the pickles, which is fine with me, but don't rinse them, just drain them. And now I gotta wash my hands. I'm gonna handle these pickles and the onions with my hands. And we're just gonna dump them in the solution. That's right, just dump them right there in the solution. And there's how much fluid was left. That's it. Now for you new canners, you can get a canning kit that has all this included in it. I will leave a link down in the description down below here, right down here, our links to Amazon where you guys can purchase a canner, a stovetop water bath canner, And I also have a pressure canner for items you have to pressure can, whole nother series. And then a canning kit. Now you can resource your jars pretty much anywhere, any grocery store, Walmart if you have one nearby. And then in the canning kit, this is a little extra. I picked this up at Walmart, Faberware, and this is what I'm going to reach in, grab the pickles out of there and drain them to fill the jars. To fill the jars, you're going to need a funnel that goes over the top of the jar so you don't make a mess. Once you get the pickles in there, you're going to need a debubbler wand, and then put the lids on there. You're going to you can use that because you don't have to boil the lids anymore, but in the past we used these to pull them out of the boiling water, so you really don't need that anymore. But to get those hot sanitized jars out of the boiling water and set them back in the boiling water, you're going to need a jar lifter. So I'm just waiting for this to come to a boil, and you have to boil it for 10 minutes. I'm going to get my lid and put my lid on there. And while that's coming to the boiling, and check my jars, they're still on low water or low heat, so they look like they're doing good. We'll keep them right there. And then I'm going to take a coffee break. I'll be back in a video second once this is finished boiling. Okay, we're back. My timer's about ready to go off in less than 3 minutes, and this has been boiling for 10 minutes as per the instructions. And then we're going to take this off the heat. I got to set up over here because as I take these jars that are filled with water out to put this solution in and the pickles in, put it back in there, I've got to take volume of water out, otherwise it'll just overflow. We only need 2 inches of water over the top of the lids for proper canning. So let's look in here. We're about ready. So why do you boil it for 10 minutes? Well, maybe it's perhaps just to kill any pathogens that are in there, because you don't want E. coli or botulism to get into your food. So this is just about ready. Plus, the canning process itself will kill the pathogens in your food. And then it also sterilizes the jar in addition to what you've already done. So I'm going to get these ready. Let's see. I don't need that. I need that. Need that. Need that. Need that. Need that. Okay. And we're done. Turn my heat off. I'm going to turn the heat off of this too. And then I'm going to take a jar out and empty it. So this amount that I made, it says it'd make 8 pints, so I'm thinking 4 or 5 quarts, because I want to save my pint jars for something else that is coming up, especially my pint wide mouth jars, because my pressure canner is too small. It doesn't hold quart jars. It only holds pint jars, which is, that's what I save them for. Besides, it's just my wife and myself, so large portions is not necessary. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and remove some of this water. because those filled jars will displace the water that's in here. Set that aside and dump this in the sink. Okay, that should be it. Let's take this hot solution and mix it in the hot jars. Ooh, the pickles and the onions. Yum. Now, we're going to pack it down to where there's just a 1-inch headspace. And we'll come back to that. I like canning. There's a lot of satisfaction, real gratification for it, because I know what's in my food. I know where my food came from. And it's especially really neat to be able to feed my family. And this will be great for around the holidays. Yeah. Because my kids love pickles. My grandkids like pickles. Okay, 1-inch headspace, because I don't want to risk siphoning. We'll just put a little bit more in there. That's going to be interesting with the white onions, the yellow onions, and the purple onions. For a variety of flavors. That is really going to be interesting, especially the color that's going to be inside the jar. Yeah, I think I'm only going to get 4 quarts out of this, which is fine. Because it said you get 8 pints. So I figured, 4 quarts. Bread and butter pickles, huh? I've never made them before. Okay, I don't have enough for 5 quarts, but with the extra pickles, I'm just going to put them in an empty jar. We're not going to can it, we're just going to put it in the refrigerator, and then that way, once it cools down, I can actually have a taste test. Because like I said, I've never made these before, ever. Okay, I got mush that down. You got to pack these in. And don't forget, 1-inch headspace. Okay, that's it for that. Let me finish putting this in that jar I want to refrigerate. Okay, we're going to set that aside. And now we're going to top these off with the broth. Now I'm going to take my debubbler wand and make sure, just move it around there, make sure I get the air bubbles in, and then adjust my headspace. And you can see how the headspace is adjusting when I poke that around in there. So now we gotta put the rest of this liquid in there. Just a little bit. We're not done yet. We have to go around the rim of each jar lid and make sure we have no debris on there so we don't compromise your seal. A wet paper towel is all you need. Now, if you're using other like fat ingredients, use vinegar on your paper towel. See, I got some stuff off on there. So we want to make sure all that is cleaned off. And now it's time for our lids. These are washed in hot soapy water and set aside like the manufacturer suggested. Then you put your rings on. Finger tight, not reef down just till the point of resistance. What you're doing is you're just keeping the lid in place because through the canning process, we're trying to remove all of the air inside. And you do that by boiling, heating up, and the air expands in the jar and it allows the air to escape if with the loose lid or the ring. It allows the air to escape. So when you take your jars out and they start cooling down, it causes denser air and cooler air. So it sucks the lid down. And that's when you hear these little pops of the centerpiece, the bubble that goes down. So I'm an aviation buff. I used to facilitate the cadet programs at the local squadron of the Civil Air Patrol, which is it's an auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. And facilitating means I have to bring in people to educate them for aerospace education. I had to train them with physical fitness. I taught them leadership skills and moral leadership, character development. So with that said, it's interesting to learn that when it comes to air density, is the seasons of the temperature plays a part. If you ever go to the airport during the winter months and you watch airplanes take off, they don't need much of a runway. They can take off really fast because the air is denser. Well, as the air expands in the heat, it takes them longer to take off, so they use most of the runway just to get off the ground, depending on their load too. So air temperature density has a big play in getting airplanes off the ground. So that's when the air expands under heat, it's pushing the air out. Then the air condenses when you bring it down to room temperature, and that sucks it out and creates that vacuum. So you have a anaerobic environment in there, meaning no air. Anaerobic means no air. And pathogens cannot live in zero air. And also, since this is an acidic environment, we can get away with water bath canning. If you have low acid foods, you have to do pressure canning, because the pressure of the steam will get the temperature up higher to ensure that you're killing all the pathogens that can cause botulism. So let's get these jars in the pot. Now they're going to be hot, so I'm going to set them down in there on that rack. Now notice how much, because of the volume that's in each jar, notice how much the water raises up. And I removed about 8 cups of water. No, I moved about 8 to 10 cups of water. Now, I need to take some of that water I took out and pour it back in, because I need to bring that water level up over the jars. Now they're fully submerged. I'm going to turn my heat on boiling, put the lid on, and wait for that to come to a boil, and then I'll set my timer. And then time for canning varies at different altitudes. Since we're at 1,800 feet to 2,000 feet, I have to let that boil in the canner for 15 minutes. And it's the same for quarts and pints. Now that's according to the USDA, the Complete Guide to Home Canning book. I'm following the recipe and the instructions out of that book. That way I know I'm safe practice on my canning. I'll go ahead and, like I said earlier, leave a link for that book down below also, so you guys can purchase that. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the kitchen and set the timer and let that boil for its time. And when we get done, we'll come back, bring them out, and then I'm going to put this other jar in the refrigerator and taste test. Okay, it's been 15 minutes boiling. We're just going to turn the heat off and let it cool a little bit. take the lid off with the steam facing away from you guys, because otherwise you're going to get burnt in the face. Anyway, I'm going to let it sit there for a minute. And for those of you who are paying attention, note that I did not put vinegar in the water. For these enamel pots, do not put vinegar in the water in the enamel pots, because the vinegar breaks down the enamel. So just a heads up on don't do it, okay? Okay, now I take my jar lifter and lift these jars out and set them on my cutting board, which is a insulated surface. If you have kitchen towels, put those down, but never, never, never put your jars directly on a countertop. A hot surface coming in sudden contact with a cold surface will shatter the glass. Yep. 4 quarts. There you go, 4 quarts. And that's it with water bath canning. Real simple process. Beginner canners, this is what you want to do, is water bath canning to start with, and then adventure into pressure canning. Get one of those books and be safe about your canning, because a lot of information online just is not accurate and is kind of dangerous. While these jars are sitting there cooling, waiting for the lids to pop down, you go to the pop. That means we successfully canned them. And I'm inspecting my jars and checking my headspace, and it looks like I was successful at no siphoning. No siphoning at all. So while these were in their canning and while they're cooling now, I'm going to go ahead and take a taste test of these pickles that I put in the refrigerator. Here it is. First time ever making bread and butter pickles. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness, these are really good. I like these. And then the onions that are in them. Now I think I prefer them sweetened with the honey rather than sugar, because I've gotten totally away from sugar over the last couple of years. But anyway, the honey is great. The ingredients right from my garden. The honey, the cucumbers, the onions, all from my garden. Yes. Well, I'm Jerry Hansen, your host, dude in the kitchen, pickling and canning, water bath canning, bread and butter pickles. Stay tuned to more videos. You could do that by subscribing, clicking that bell icon. That alerts you to new videos as I upload them. Give me a thumbs up. Share my videos on your social media platforms. Help us out. Remember, be safe, always be kind. I'll see you guys in my next adventure. Bye-bye now.